I'm Lisa Martinez, 39, a marketing coordinator from Tampa, Florida. And I never thought that opening a piece of mail in my own kitchen would reveal that my husband had been lying to me for 8 months about a $50,000 special assessment on our waterfront condo. What I discovered next about where that money really went and what I did to make him pay triple damages will shock you. It was a humid Tuesday evening in September, the kind where Tampa's air conditioning works overtime and you can smell the Gulf breeze through the windows. I was sorting through our mail pile, mostly bills and junk, when I saw an official envelope from Sunset Harbor Condominiums, our building's management company. The return address made my stomach tighten. We lived in a luxury high-rise overlooking Tampa Bay, the kind of place where HOA fees run $800 a month and everyone drives German cars. I tore open the envelope, expecting maybe a notice about pool maintenance or parking regulations. Instead, I found a bright red final notice stamp across the top of a document that made my blood run cold. Special assessment balance. Due, $50,000. Payment 180 days overdue. Legal action will commence in 10 business days. My hands started shaking. $50,000? Overdue for 6 months? I read it again, thinking there had to be some mistake. The assessment was for critical structural repairs to our building's foundation and waterproofing system. Every unit owner was responsible for their share, and apparently, ours had been due back in March. That was 8 months ago. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up our bank statements, searching frantically for any payments to the condo association beyond our regular monthly HOA fees. Nothing. No $50,000 payment. No installment plan. Nothing. My husband Marcus walked through the front door at that exact moment, whistling some tune and carrying his gym bag. He was 42, a commercial real estate developer with sun-weathered hands and a smile that used to make me feel safe. Tonight, that smile made me nauseous. "Marcus," I said, my voice barely steady. "What is this?" I held up the final notice, watching his face carefully. His expression shifted so fast it was like watching a mask fall off. The whistling stopped. The smile vanished. For just a second, I saw something I'd never seen before in my husband's eyes. Panic. "Oh, that," he said, forcing a laugh and dropping his gym bag by the door. "It's just some bureaucratic mix-up. The HOA loves to send scary letters to make people pay faster. I've been handling it." "Handling it how?" I asked, standing up from the kitchen table. "Because according to this, we owe $50,000 and they're about to sue us." Marcus walked to the refrigerator and grabbed a beer, taking his time opening it. Classic stalling tactic. "Lisa, babe, you know I handle all the condo stuff. This assessment was bogus from the start. I'm fighting it through proper channels. Trust me. Trust me." Those 2 words hit like a punch to the gut because suddenly I realized I hadn't been trusting him at all. I'd been ignoring the signs. The late nights at client meetings, the new clothes and cologne, the way he'd started password protecting his phone, the mysterious charges on our credit card for restaurants I'd never been to. "Show me the paperwork," I said, my voice getting stronger. "Show me your correspondence with the HOA. Show me the legal challenge you filed." Marcus took a long drink of his beer, buying time. "It's at the office. Look, can we talk about this tomorrow? I've had a long day and you're getting worked up over nothing. Getting worked up over nothing. Our home being threatened with legal action was nothing. A hidden $50,000 debt was nothing." I stared at this man I'd been married to for 7 years, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. "I'm calling the HOA first thing tomorrow morning," I said. His beer bottle froze halfway to his lips. "Why would you do that?" "I told you I'm handling it." "Because I want to understand exactly what's happening with our home," I said, emphasizing the word our. "This affects both of us, Marcus. We could lose this place." He set down his beer and rubbed his temples like I was giving him a headache. "Fine, call them. But don't make any commitments or agreements. Let me handle the negotiations." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Marcus snored beside me, his phone face down on the nightstand like always. The red numbers on our alarm clock seemed to mock me. 2:47 a.m., 3:23 a.m., 4:15 a.m. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I was going to get answers. The next morning, after Marcus left for work, I called Sunset Harbor's management office. The receptionist transferred me to Janet Patterson, the property manager, who'd been running our building for 15 years. "Mrs. Martinez," Janet said, her voice professional but tired. "I'm glad you called. We've been trying to reach your husband for months about this assessment." "What exactly happened?" I asked, gripping the phone. "I just found out about this yesterday." Janet's sigh was audible through the phone. "Back in February, we discovered significant structural issues with the building's foundation and waterproofing. The engineer's report showed potential safety hazards that needed immediate attention. The board voted on a special assessment of $50,000 per unit to fund the repairs." My stomach dropped. Safety hazards, water damage, concrete deterioration, some electrical concerns. Nothing immediately dangerous, but the kind of problems that get worse and more expensive if you ignore them. We sent out notices in March requiring payment by June 1st. Every unit owner received registered mail with detailed explanations. I closed my eyes, remembering. I never saw any notices. Your husband signed for all the correspondence, Janet said gently. We have the certified mail receipts with his signature. Mrs. Martinez, we've made numerous attempts to work with him on a payment plan, but he's been unresponsive. The board had no choice but to proceed with legal action. My hands were shaking again. What happens if we don't pay? The association can place a lien on your unit, charge interest and legal fees, and ultimately foreclose if necessary. We don't want to do that, but we have a responsibility to all the other unit owners who paid their assessments on time. After I hung up, I sat in our beautiful living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Tampa Bay and felt my world crumbling. Marcus had been lying to me for 8 months. He'd hidden critical information about our home, put us at risk of foreclosure, and somehow made me feel like I was overreacting for wanting answers. But where was the money? If we hadn't paid the assessment, what had happened to the $50,000 that should have come from our savings? I opened my laptop and logged into our bank accounts. Our joint checking had $3,200. Our joint savings had $12,000. We used to have much more than that. I started going through statements month by month, looking for large withdrawals or transfers. There. In March, right around the time we should have been paying the assessment, I found a transfer of $45,000 from our savings to Marcus's personal business account. The memo line just said, investment opportunity. Investment opportunity. While our home was being threatened with foreclosure, Marcus had moved our money into his business account for some mysterious investment. I felt sick. I called the bank and requested detailed statements for Marcus's business account. As his wife, I was an authorized user, though I'd never bothered to monitor it before. What I discovered made me understand exactly why my husband had been so eager to keep me away from this situation. Starting in March, right after he transferred our money, there were regular payments to someone named Sierra Williams, rent payments to a luxury apartment complex called Bay Breeze Gardens, payments to Victoria's Secret, Nordstrom, expensive restaurants, a day spa, even a Mercedes-Benz dealership. Marcus wasn't just hiding the assessment from me, he was using our money that should have protected our home, to fund a girlfriend. I sat there in our condo, looking out at the water, and felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just anger, though there was plenty of that. It was clarity. For months, I'd been second-guessing myself, wondering why I felt so disconnected from my husband, why our conversations felt hollow, why he seemed like a stranger. Now I knew. He'd been living a double life, and I was funding it. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Working late? Right. I looked at the bank statement showing a dinner charge at Ocean Prime for $347 from last Tuesday, the same night he'd come home at 11 p.m. claiming he'd grabbed a sandwich at his desk. I screenshot every transaction, every suspicious charge, every payment to Sierra Williams. Then I called Janet Patterson back. Janet, it's Lisa Martinez again. I need to understand our legal options. If my husband has been hiding this assessment and misappropriating funds that should have gone toward the payment, what recourse do I have? There was a pause. Mrs. Martinez, are you saying your husband had access to the money but chose not to pay the assessment? That's exactly what I'm saying. And I have bank records to prove it. Janet's voice became more focused. In that case, you need to speak with our legal counsel. Florida law is very specific about fiduciary responsibilities between spouses regarding jointly owned property. If your husband breached that responsibility, there could be grounds for damages beyond just the original assessment. That afternoon, I met with David Chen, the attorney who handled condo association matters for our building. David was in his 50s, with the kind of calm demeanor that comes from dealing with neighbor disputes and HOA drama for decades. Lisa, he said, reviewing the documents I'd brought, what your husband did is more serious than just hiding bills. By concealing the assessment and diverting money that should have protected your marital property, he's potentially liable for breach of fiduciary duty. What does that mean practically? I asked. In Florida, when one spouse's actions put marital property at risk for personal gain, the innocent spouse can seek compensation for actual damages plus punitive damages. Given that his actions resulted in late fees, legal costs, and potential foreclosure threats, we're looking at significant liability. David explained that the original $50,000 assessment had grown to $67,000 with late fees and legal costs. But beyond that, Marcus's breach of duty to our marriage could result in him being personally responsible for much more. Here's what I recommend, David said. We file a motion with the court to hold your husband in contempt for violating his fiduciary duty to the marriage. We request that he be held personally liable for triple damages. The original assessment plus twice that amount in punitive damages for his deception and misappropriation. Triple damages. That would be $150,000 instead of $50,000. For the first time in months, I smiled. There's more, David continued. Given that he used marital funds to support another relationship, we can also seek reimbursement for all money spent on his girlfriend, plus attorney fees and court costs. I thought about every dinner at Ocean Prime, every rent payment to Sierra Williams, every gift purchased with money that should have kept our home safe. How much are we talking about? David pulled out a calculator. Based on these bank statements, approximately $73,000 in diverted funds over 8 months, plus the $150,000 in triple damages for the assessment. Your husband could be looking at personal liability of over $220,000. That evening, I cooked Marcus's favorite dinner, grilled salmon with asparagus, and opened a bottle of wine. When he walked through the door at 7 p.m., early for him lately, I was setting the table like nothing had changed. "This is nice," he said, kissing my cheek. "What's the occasion?" "I thought we should talk about the condo situation," I said, serving the salmon. "I spoke with Janet Patterson today." Marcus's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I told you I was handling that." "I know you did. That's why I wanted to understand exactly how you were handling it." I sat down across from him, my voice conversational. "She mentioned you signed for several certified letters back in March." "Right. The bogus assessment letters." "Marcus," I said gently. "I also spoke with David Chen, the building's attorney. The assessment isn't bogus. It's for critical structural repairs. The engineering report shows real safety issues." He set down his fork. "Lisa, where is this going? I'm trying to understand why you moved $45,000 from our savings to your business account the same month the assessment was due. Janet says every other unit owner paid on time." The color drained from Marcus's face. He opened his mouth, then closed it, then tried again. "That was a separate business investment. It has nothing to do with the assessment. An investment that pays rent for Sierra Williams?" The wine glass slipped from Marcus's hand, shattering on our hardwood floor. Red wine spread across the wood like blood, and for a moment neither of us moved. "How do you know that name?" he whispered. "Bank records," I said, my voice still calm. 8 months of bank records showing exactly where our money went while our home was being threatened with foreclosure. Marcus stood up abruptly, wine dripping from his pants. "Lisa, I can explain. I'm sure you can. But first, let me explain something to you." I pulled out the legal documents David had prepared. "This is a motion for contempt of court for breach of fiduciary duty. You're being held personally liable for triple damages on the assessment, $150,000 instead of $50,000, plus reimbursement for every penny you spent on your girlfriend, plus legal fees and court costs." Marcus stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "Triple damages? That's not legal." "Actually, it is. Florida Statute 61.075 specifically addresses what happens when one spouse puts marital property at risk for personal gain. David says it's one of the clearest cases he's seen. Lisa, wait. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we don't need lawyers and courts. I'll pay the assessment. I'll fix this." "With what money?" I asked. "You spent $73,000 on Sierra Williams. Our savings are gone. Our home is 10 days away from legal action." Marcus was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. "I'll liquidate some business assets. I'll take out a loan. Just don't file this motion." I stood up and handed him the papers. "It's already filed. You have 72 hours to respond." 72 hours? "Lisa, this will destroy me financially. Please. You should have thought about that before you chose Sierra Williams over our marriage." The next 3 days were the longest of my life. Marcus alternated between anger, bargaining, and desperate pleading. He moved out of our bedroom. He called in sick to work. He hired his own attorney, who called David to try to negotiate a settlement. On Friday morning, we met in David's office with Marcus's lawyer, a nervous young man named Tommy Brennan, who kept adjusting his tie. "My client is prepared to pay the original assessment plus late fees," Tommy said. $67,000 to make this go away." David smiled. "Your client breached his fiduciary duty to his marriage and put their home at risk to fund an extramarital relationship. The damages go far beyond the original assessment. Triple damages is excessive," Tommy argued. "No judge will award that. Want to bet?" David opened a folder. "I have 8 months of bank records showing systematic diversion of marital funds, credit card statements proving an ongoing affair, certified mail receipts proving he deliberately concealed critical information from his wife. Judge Morrison has seen this evidence." Marcus looked like he might throw up. "What do you want from me?" I leaned forward. I want you to take responsibility for what you've done. Pay the triple damages, reimburse every penny you spent on Sierra, cover all legal costs, and sign a post-nuptial agreement giving me sole control of our condo and all marital assets. That's everything I have, Marcus said, his voice breaking. No, I said. Everything you had was ours. You gambled it away on a relationship that's probably over now that she knows you're broke. Tommy whispered something in Marcus's ear. Marcus shook his head, then whispered back. They had a brief, heated conversation before Tommy spoke up. We need time to consider the offer. You have until Monday, David said. After that, we go to trial, and the damages could be even higher. That weekend, Marcus tried everything. He showed up at my sister's house where I was staying, flowers in hand, begging for another chance. He called my parents, my friends, anyone he thought might influence me. He even tried to contact Sierra, though according to the private investigator I'd hired, yes, I hired a PI, she'd blocked his number and moved out of the Bay Breeze apartment. On Monday morning, Tommy called David. Marcus was ready to settle. The final agreement was more comprehensive than I'd imagined. Marcus paid $223,000 total, $150,000 in triple damages for the assessment, $73,000 reimbursement for money spent on Sierra, plus $15,000 in legal fees and court costs. He signed over his interest in our condo to me completely. He agreed to a post-nuptial agreement, giving me sole control of all marital assets. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue criminal charges for fraud or embezzlement, and I wouldn't contest his request for a quick divorce. The money came from Marcus liquidating his business assets, taking out loans against his retirement accounts, and selling his beloved boat. He moved into a studio apartment in South Tampa and took a job with a commercial real estate firm where he'd have to rebuild his client base from scratch. 6 months later, I'm sitting in our fully repaired condo, watching the sunset over Tampa Bay. The structural work is complete, the building is safer than it's been in years, and my home is secure. I used part of the settlement money to completely renovate my unit. New floors, new kitchen, new master bathroom. It's like starting over in a space that's entirely mine. Marcus texts occasionally, usually asking about paperwork or apologizing again. I don't respond. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Sierra Williams, according to my PI, is engaged to a doctor she met at that day spa Marcus used to pay for. Apparently, she never knew he was married until everything fell apart. I almost feel sorry for her. The divorce was finalized last month. I kept the condo, my car, and my job. Marcus kept his debts and his regrets. The court ordered him to pay me $2,000 a month in spousal support for 3 years, though his lawyer argued he could barely afford his studio apartment rent. As for me, I'm learning to live alone again, and I'm surprised by how much I like it. No more wondering where money went. No more ignored gut feelings. No more lying by omission or outright deception. My neighbor across the hall, a retired teacher named Dorothy, stopped by last week with homemade cookies. "Lisa, honey," she said, "I know it's been a difficult year, but you handled that situation with more grace than most people would have managed." "I just protected what was mine," I said. "No, dear. You protected what was right. There's a difference. Tonight I'm cooking dinner for one, and it feels like freedom. The condo association voted me onto the board last month. Apparently they were impressed by how I handled the Marcus situation. Who knew that getting betrayed by your husband could lead to a new career in property management? To everyone who's been following this journey, thank you for walking with me through the darkest months of my life and out into something better. If you've ever felt like you're being lied to, if your gut is telling you something's wrong, trust yourself. Get the documents. Ask the hard questions. Protect what's yours. And remember, sometimes when someone shows you who they really are, the best response isn't to try to change them. It's to believe them and act accordingly. If this story resonated with you, if you faced betrayal or had to rebuild your life from scratch, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Every week, we share stories about people who refused to be victims, who fought back legally and ethically, and who came out stronger. Keep fighting for yourself, and I'll see you in the next episode.